We begin our story in Columbus, Ohio, where news broke that a beloved imam was murdered.
And finally, one of us found his body, and then they called us today and they said he's lying down here.
Breaking tonight, the Somali community in Columbus heartbroken over the loss of a religious leader. They've been searching for their imam, Sheikh Mohammed Hassan Adam, since Wednesday night. Today, a body found in a car in South Linden that matched his van.
Although this man appears to be the spokesperson for the group, the media wanted CAIR's sort of help.
We'd like to offer sort of our help and support. Right now, information is critical.
They don't know anything about the man and may not have ever heard of him before. They may know as little about him as you or I.
A pillar within the Somali community.
He was a pillar within the Somali community.
As a pillar in the Somali Muslim community.
And his work is very difficult, in particular to the Somali Muslim community, because he's a pillar.
His Muslim faith calls on him to do that. It is not enough to just, believe in God's word. It is, you have to act on it, and you have to be that.
Some of these broadcasts are as much about CAIR as they are about the murdered imam.
So
Here, the TV station allows CAIR's spokesperson to rhapsodize about Muslim faith.
If he was blessed, that, he shared in these blessings, if he was privileged, that he shared, in these spaces.
CAIR offered a reward for information leading to an arrest like they have done in the past, but nobody ever claims
A
it.
$10,000 reward now being offered by the Ohio chapter of Council on American Islam Relations for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for Adam's murder.
The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, they have offered a $10,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of whoever may have been involved.
A reward of $10,000 has also been offered by CAIR Ohio for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of those involved.
The family in CAIR Ohio have set up a crowdfunding page to continue the imam's legacy of giving back to those in need. You can find that link on our website.
Last month, the Council on American Islamic Relations Ohio chapter donated $10,000 for a reward to be offered by Crime Stoppers.
Of CAIR Ohio, Amina Barhumi says their organization is offering a $10,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of those involved in the imam's death.
And it's very important we know that CAIR put up the reward, that they did it. And that's the problem with all of CAIR's broadcasts. It's all self-promotion. This is just one more example of CAIR exploiting someone's misfortune. We know how they really feel. They only care about themselves, and they sure aren't fighting injustice.
The way he has so gruesomely died, but how he lived his life.
Amina Barhumi, the acting director of the Ohio chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, is calling for a thorough and transparent investigation.
So many questions are unanswered, and in this difficult time, this ambiguity becomes even more difficult to bear given the tragic circumstances.
Barhumi says his loss is being felt not only here in central Ohio, but around the country.
Too often, the homicides of Black immigrant men are overlooked, disregarded, forgotten, and we really refuse to let that happen here today.
The Ohio chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations saying that he is not just a statistics. CAIR says that too often Black men and men of immigrant men, their homicides are often forgotten about and overlooked, and they said they refuse to let that be the case in this case.
Too often, the murders of immigrant people of color are ignored by society. That will not happen in this case. However, just a week earlier, before CAIR made their defiant declaration, Malik Akram had taken hostages in Colorado, Texas.
Congressman Levin, we are actually getting some breaking news on this developing situation, and some more details are coming in. We are hearing that from 3 senior law enforcement officials that a man is holding a rabbi and potentially others hostage at this Fort Worth area synagogue, and has told authorities there that he wants the release of Aafia Siddiqui from federal prison. Just so folks know, Siddiqui is 49 years old, was convicted by a federal jury back in 2010 of attempting to kill U.S. officers in Afghanistan. and is currently being held at FMC Carswell, which is actually in Fort Worth, Texas, a federal prison for female offenders that houses a total of just over 1,000 inmates, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Yasmin?
Yeah.
If I might.
Yes.
You know, we monitor extremist threats to the Jewish community and other targeted communities. So we know indeed that the assailant, his sister, was arrested and is being held in a federal penitentiary.
CAIR got on TV to tell us Aafia's brother was not involved and CAIR had nothing to do with this.
We also know that in a statement, the Council of American Islamic Relations board chair and the longtime legal counsel for the brother of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui has released a statement saying, "We want to make it very well known that the hostage taker is not Dr. Aafia Siddiqui's brother, who is not even in the same region where this horrible incident is taking place. We want the hostage taker to know that Dr. Aafia Siddiqui and her family strongly condemn this act and do not stand by you."
By the way, the Council on American Islamic Relations condemning the hostage-taking situation.
Head of the Houston chapter of CAIR, that's the Council on American Islamic Relations, condemned what happened Saturday, saying, quote, "This anti-Semitic attack against a house of worship is unacceptable. We stand in solidarity with the Jewish community."
While being questioned in a counterterrorism investigation in Afghanistan, her conviction has sparked protests from groups who believe she was wrongly convicted, including one protest outside the Fort Worth prison last fall. But in a news conference today,
the perpetrator was not from here and certainly does not represent us or anything we stand for.
the DFW Council on American Islamic Relations, which has campaigned for Siddiqui's release, and Siddiqui's own attorney said the hostage taker does not speak for Siddiqui's cause and they had no contact with the man.
I want to state clearly and unequivocally that we do not know this individual.
According to this report from the Network Contagion Research Institute, CAIR did have a connection to this story. The Free Aafia movement was largely dormant until CAIR started an intense Twitter campaign. This graph shows tweets with the term Aafia spiked just hours before Akram made his fatal decision. CAIR was part of this campaign on social media. They were a central hub in the distribution of tweets, and the most shared tweets contained a link to CAIR's website. CAIR was also active in the physical world.
The Muslim lobbying group CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, has waged a very public campaign to free Aafia Siddiqui, and the group says it does stand in solidarity with the Jewish community. In fact, the executive director of the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter of CAIR condemns what happened, calling it wrong, heinous, and, quote, something that is completely undermining our efforts to get Dr. Aafia released. But take a look at this event that was held by CAIR's Texas chapter just 2 months ago to support her release from federal prison. The Facebook event was billed as Injustice Dr. Aafia in November. It featured CAIR's Texas leader along with Siddiqui's lawyer and controversial activist Linda Sarsour. There have also been rallies held in New York, Washington, Boston, and Texas demanding that she be released.
They partnered with the Aafia Foundation. The Aafia Foundation wrote a prayer on Facebook for Anas Haqqani, a leader of the Haqqani Network, a designated terrorist group affiliated with al-Qaeda and responsible for the deaths of American soldiers and Afghan civilians. The TV stations knew. This reporter said there was chatter before the attack. That would be CAIR's activity, information that TV did not share with the public.
In the days before the temple attack, there was more chatter about Siddiqui's case on social media, as supporters posted concerns about Siddiqui's mother, who was recently hospitalized.
Nevertheless, the story is gone and forgotten. In the wake of Colleyville, CAIR has said nothing about their possible role in an immigrant person of color losing his life.
How did Akram die? The hostages had escaped. Who gave the order to shoot him? Why isn't CAIR asking these questions? The answer is because Akram got in CAIR's way.
For CAIR's sake, it's better that society forget this man's death. For the sake of the TV stations, it's best that CAIR not be associated with Malik Akram. CAIR didn't plan the Colleyville synagogue attack. However, they may very well have inspired Malik Akram with their call to action on social media and elsewhere.
Is it possible that this guy in the synagogue was inspired by this global campaign to free her?
It's certainly possible.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us. What are we doing to stand for our sister, for her family?
for all those victims of the United States war of terror against the Muslim world. She is another victim of the U.S. war of terror.
And our faith has been assaulted when Aafia was assaulted. Our religion, our book, our faith was desecrated when she was tortured. And our prophet is disappointed because we have not done enough for her.
Even if it were an amazing coincidence, wouldn't a reputable, responsible, professional organization have some concern about how they might have caused a terrorist attack? Wouldn't they reflect on what had happened and consider how to do things more safely when talking to a pro-Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Hamas group of Muslims who might get carried away with all this war on Islam talk? This all means CAIR will continue to attack people on TV.
The Council of American Islamic Relations says in regard to Holmes, it is unacceptable for a lawmaker whose duty it is to represent all constituents in his district to be a member of an organization that honors traitors and white supremacists. Holmes declined the council's request, saying he has no plans on leaving the Sons of Confederate Veterans.
One officer did not kill George Floyd. This was a gang of officers who publicly on Facebook lynched George Floyd for nearly 10 minutes.
To make accusations that are completely false and historically inaccurate about, one of the integral faith communities, not only in our state, but our country and the entire world, is very much offensive and hurtful.
The Council on American Islamic Relations, also known as CAIR, accusing the Investigative Project on Terrorism of paying informants to conduct surveillance on prominent Muslims, like Katanani, around the nation.
The New Jersey chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations is now calling for the police officers to be removed from the Bridgewater Police Department while the incident gets investigated, saying in part, quote, "The incident is outrageous."
We should be looking at hate crime charges. We should be looking at terrorism charges.
The executive director of CAIR Chicago condemning the suspect's actions.
Nothing can possibly explain or justify or allow us to remotely understand why. It's absolutely petrifying.
To the Cleveland chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR Cleveland, that means Walls should face federal hate crime charges. CAIR Cleveland, in a statement, said Walls is the vice president of the Akron-Canton chapter of the Proud Boys. Executive Director Julie Shearson wrote, "This appalling assault was clearly an act of racist hate and must be prosecuted as such by law enforcement. As violent racism continues to rise nationwide, it is essential that incidents like this are taken seriously."
Mr. Walls, obviously, this case has been heated with the allegations that Mr. Walls does have a stable residence separate and apart from any victim. He does have employment. Additionally, he has been receiving a lot of threats and things of this nature.
CAIR used an internet rumor as the pretext for calling for an elementary school teacher's termination while she was under police protection.
CAIR-NJ, the Council on American Islamic Relations, a civil rights advocacy group for Muslims, is calling for the teacher's removal.
CAIR was responsible for rape threats sent to an underage girl.
The Board of Education needs to ask for his resignation.
Someone is going to get hurt. In fact, someone has already been hurt. And the media covered that up for the sake of the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Often, the homicides of immigrant men are overlooked,